The details that have emerged as to what really happened with Tylee and JJ and Tammy and at the hands of who are absolutely heartbreaking, and we're going to talk about some of the highlights in this video. Hello Sofa Squad and welcome back to the sofa. That's the sofa back there. Mr. Roscoe's holding it down and my name is Paul. Now like I said in the intro, what we're going to be doing with today's video, and it's actually going to be kind of out of the norm. This is going to be a pretty short video. I'm kind of in a real busy going to work cycle for the next few days and today, but literally my comments, my inbox, everything has been blowing up about this information coming out. So when I got home from work, I had a chance to go through tweets and read it, and I want to talk to a few different things on this because I definitely have some thoughts, and most importantly, I'm interested to hear what you all have to say about this. Now what we'll do for this video is we're going to watch a couple of news clips actually to kind of put us all on the same page, and then we're going to review some tweets. I believe most of them are Nate Eaton's. Be sure to follow him if you are not following him. He's been here from day one. And they're also, they are doing, not live streaming it, but you know, they're putting the audio up of the trial at the day after, the evening of, whatever. You can catch it at East Idaho News, so make sure you follow all them. So let's go ahead and watch this first couple of news clips, and also just be warned, this is definitely not for the faint of heart. So if you're triggered by hearing, you know, about the things that happen to the kids and whatnot, this probably is not a video for you. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started.
He also went on into more detail about how they determined what they found was JJ's remains. Agent Daniels says after they found JJ, they knew Tylee had to be around there as well. He says when they found Tylee's remains, there was a big contrast. It was, quote, just a huge difference because as we've reported, Tylee's remains were melted and charred or morgue. And he says he determined JJ's cause of death to be asphyxia by plastic bag over the head and duct tape over the mouth. He says there were other conditions and also other injuries that jumped out at him, like scratches and bruising on JJ's body.
Okay, when I heard this, and when we get into some of the tweets we're about to read, I mean, my stomach dropped, my heart broke. I was like, oh my God. Well, first and foremost, I'm sitting here thinking of like Larry and Kay and all these people in the audience, in the courtroom, whatever, hearing this stuff. And I'm like, it's worse than we imagined, right? The thought of Tylee and JJ being done to them is absolutely mind-numbing. So first of all, and just like they said in the first little news clip that we watched, and again, I always go back to this, the differences in how each of them their lives were taken and what were done with the remains. Now, also, if you want to look at it from like, I don't know if you want to see a legal perspective or whatever. And again, let me just go ahead and say this. If you're new here, if you're not new here, I always say it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a shrink. I'm not any of that stuff. I'm not qualified to give professional opinions. Okay. So all of this is just entertainment and my opinion only, right? So when I say stuff like what I'm getting ready to say, I mean, it's coming from a sofa opinion and that's it. So when I sit here and think about the evidence that has come forth with what the belief system was of Chad and Lori, and they talk about the things that you would have to do with a body to make sure demons don't enter it, or you got rid of a demon, and so on and so forth. This completely just ties together with how Tylee and JJ's remains were handled. And so I find that very interesting, and I do wonder, I mean, my sofa opinion is I would think legally this could help to get a conviction simply because they're sitting here saying, oh, you have to burn the body, or you have to, you know, have the body tied, and all the same way that JJ was murdered. And so I'm just like, okay, well, here we have these people testifying to this, and then that's how their lives were taken. Also, one thing that I was holding out hope for, at least, was I was like, please at least don't let the children have been aware of what was happening to them, right? I mean, at the minimum. And now hearing this, I'm like, I feel like they completely were. You know, I feel like it was not, you know, and there's no good way to have your life taken, right? I'm not saying that. But I just feel like they were completely aware of it now. And I'm like, oh my God, these monsters. Literal, absolute monsters that have done this to them. So again, just finding this out, and in the graphic nature of, like, for example, Tylee's remains, I was like, oh my god. Now let's use this as a segue to talk about some of the tweets, and how the remains were handled and whatnot. So let's go ahead and put some on the screen now. Okay, the first one we have up here is this major one by Nate Eaton. Breaking: forensic pathologist says J.J. Vallow died to asphyxia by a plastic bag over his head. Now again, this just sends chills down my spine. I mean, my heart goes out to his family members having to sit here and hear this, and God only knows, the jury seeing the pictures and whatnot. I cannot wrap my mind around the fact of how these grown adults, the parents, I'm speaking of, not the parents, Chad wasn't the parent, you know what I'm saying, I'm speaking of Lori, I'm speaking of Alex, how they could do this to these children. I do not get it, and I will probably never get it. Now let's go look at another one of these tweets. Okay, now this one gets a little bit graphic, and again, we have Nate Eaton with East Idaho News, and this is in relation to Tylee. Now, just the first one, we see an image of a pickaxe. There's some material on the eye of the pickaxe blade. There was some material that was apparently dirt, but the material on the center of the pickaxe was dark with an oily texture. It had a dark, greasy ring around it. And then he says that they're getting into a close-up image of material Dace was able to collect. She was able to obtain a partial DNA profile from a female, and she compared it to Lori, Tylee, and perhaps Melanie Gibb. And she says that there's an extremely high probability the DNA is Tylee's. And she says, we now see the handle of a pickaxe. Would ask if Daisy was able to do a DNA profile from the evidence, and she collected. Daisy was, and it matched Tylee Ryan's DNA. Now, this is one of those things that when I hear this, I'm like, this sounds, I mean, it's literally like a horror film. I'm just like, you know, and I mean, to think, and I go back to this, I'm kind of like at a loss for words, I'm not gonna lie. I sit here and think if any of this was a motivating factor in what was done with the bodies and the way each of them, their lives were taken. Because you know how we hear this evidence, especially from like Melanie Gibb, where it's like, oh, Tylee was kind of like a feisty, you know, a grumpy teenager and kind of talking back all the time and this, that, and the other. I almost feel like, was Tylee treated this way as like a, yeah, we're going to show her type situation? You know, and I'm not trying to say that one or the other deserved their remains to be done in a certain way, because they didn't deserve any of this to happen to them. You know, but I sit there and wonder that, like, almost like, you know, even though the facade is done of, oh, well, no, you know, they had turned and, you know, they're, whatever the stuff is that Chad and Lori say, right? I just feel like this is personal with Tylee, if that makes sense. It's absolutely horrifying. And again, I go back to, I'll put a picture of it up here, of them dancing on the beach. And remember, if you listen to Summer's testimony, Lori's sister, where she's screaming at her, you know, their bodies are in the backyard and you're dancing on the beach taking wedding pictures. Okay, even worse than that, to that, or adding on to that, is when we learn these details. When we learn these details of exactly how this went down, and it's like, how could you ever sit there and be okay with being able to go on at all? Which again, Summer says this to Lori too. How can you go on without them? I have no idea. Now let's quickly switch gears over to Tammy Daybell and listen to that. Now, the time of this recording, they have not finished, I think, with some of the information coming out about Tammy. So you're probably going to be watching this in the morning, and the next day, which will be the 28th of Friday, the 20th of April, they're going to continue on with that testimony. But I thought that it was interesting when they had a family member get up there and testify. And you can read the tweet here. When they lived in Utah, Tammy worked as a special ed secretary and was very good with computers. Chad was part of the cemetery grounds crew and dug graves. The morning Tammy died, Chad called Samantha and said Tammy had been really sick and that she had been coughing all night. And then in another tweet, she had gotten up with a coughing fit around midnight and went back to sleep. He was awakened by her that morning when she rolled out of bed dead. Okay, now here's my thing. So the testimony on the stand is Tammy, there's no signs of her being sick. No signs being sick. Some weird vibes between her and Chad, you know, in different family visits, stuff like that. But no, you know, no signs of the sickness that he was trying to tell. She was very sick, you know, so on and so forth. Well, here's the thing. It also seems that asphyxiation is a method of choice with, I'm assuming maybe Alex and Chad or whoever. But that seems to be a popular way of taking people out for these people. So, I have never thought that Tammy died of natural causes, at all. It was just a matter of figuring out. Now, another thing that I think is interesting is the story. If you just look at the statement for what it is, he was awakened by her that morning when she rolled out of bed dead. That doesn't even make sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't even make sense. Now, again, I'm sure there's some other way. I mean, maybe when you fall out of bed dead, but it doesn't even make sense, right? But none of this does. None of this case has ever made sense from the get-go. Now, let's move on to the information about Alex Cox and fingerprints and palm prints. So I'm just going to put these tweets up here and we'll talk about it. Again, it's Nate Eaton from East Idaho News. And here we go. She obtained usable prints off 2 items. On the first item, she compared the prints to Lori, Chad, JJ, and Alex. Martinez says she could not reach a definitive match, but she has an inconclusive finding because of the quality of the print. Smith asked to admit an exhibit of presentation. Martinez prepared ahead of trial. It's entered. They see it on the screen. We see 2 images on the screen. The photo on the left is 2 black plastic bags. The photo on the right is the body type bag that the remains were inside of. Martina processed one of the black plastic bags. Martinez used 2 different processes to try and get prints because there was both plastic and tape. Usable prints were developed on the plastic portion, not on the duct tape portion. Martinez points out an area on the black plastic where she found a latent print. The print matched the right little finger of Alexander Lamar Cox. Lori Daybell is taking notes or drawing on a notebook during Martinez's testimony. She is not paying attention to what is on the screen. Now moving along to another tweet by Nate. It says Martinez found another latent print matching Alex's Cox's right palm. So both prints matched Alex. Okay, now here's the part about this. This is something that we've all, and when I say we all, I mean me for sure, right? But so many of us have speculated on of, we think Alex was the hitman, we think that he did it, so on and so forth. Okay, so to get confirmation, right? Because there is no reason why his prints should be on this. Again, it's shocking to me, but it's not shocking in this. To me, what this does is it falls in line with basically what we've seen, and also with Alex's statements to Zulema, where he was like, I think I'm going to be their fall guy, kind of a thing. Because I'm just like, oh yeah, completely right. Now, we heard Summer say where, Alex had this head injury, and he basically wasn't right, just kind of almost like left him in like teenage type years or whatever, with his decision making and whatnot. And so that part of it right there, combined with, okay, we've got the proof. Now we have definitive proof, right? He killed Charles. So, I mean, you just start adding this up, and I mean, he's got a lot of deaths under his belt, right? And 100%, I mean, you cannot tell me different. Whether Chad walked him through the process on the phone to take his own life, I think that they were behind it somehow, right? But we'll probably never know. But regardless, if that didn't go down that way, they would have taken him out. They would have taken him out. He knew too much, right? So also I sit here and think this, right? Okay, we just heard Summer's testimony day before, whatever, screaming and yelling at Lori, gets in the stand, puts it all out there. Imagine hearing this this confirmation. I'm imagining they knew this beforehand, so regardless, but that your brother, yes, this is what he did, like hands down, he ain't doing this on his own, okay? He's not doing it on his own. He didn't just wake up and decide to do this. This was ordered. This came with, he was following directions, in my opinion, right? I mean, again, only him and a couple of other people will know about that, and I personally don't think Lori's going to get up there and admit to any of that. So That's why I say this was shocking but not shocking, because of course it's shocking. I mean, the whole thing is. But yeah, so anyways, let me know what you think. Again, this is a kind of shorter video here. I just wanted to get my thoughts out about this because I literally came home. I'm recording this at 9:20 at nighttime right now. And I got to get up early in the morning, so I'll be checking the comments to see what y'all have to say about it in the morning. But let me know, was this a shock to you about the prints? I mean, I don't think so, but I'm curious to know what you think. And then again, I mean, what can you even say about JJ and Tylee, the way they were, their lives were taken, and Tammy as well. I mean, all of these victims, right? But just to get the confirmation of it, it makes it that much realer. It makes it that much sadder. And again, there's just nothing coming from Lori. There's nothing coming from Lori. And it magnifies my feelings about that to get this confirmation of, okay, this is, there's tools with, Tylee's remains on them. I mean, this is horrifying. JJ did not leave this earth in a very nice way at all either. I mean, it's terrible. And to sit there and think that she's just so casual over there, or to listen to her on the phone with Summer, I love you, you know me. I cannot with the whole thing. So anyways, if you're still watching, drop hearts down in the comment section and let me know what you think down in the comment section. And until we gather around my little phone, which has not gone off this whole time, I'll see you soon.